Hello. Welcome back to another video, and this time we are going to talk about how to pre-plan your next mesocycle. So before we delve really into the topic at hand, just want to make sure that you are aware of that you can find a link to a presentation in the description below where I'm talking about how to pre-plan the next mesocycle, and there I'm talking about 3 different methods. I think it's around like 20 to 25 minutes long, the presentation, and it's going way more in depth about the different methods than I will here this time around. This time I'm just going to talk about one method, and that is what I like to term the reverse engineering method. This method, it won't apply to each and every kind of training style. Depending on the way that you program, you can either use it or it's becoming a little bit less useful for you. Perhaps there are little bits and pieces that you can still apply for you if you train in a different manner, or if you're programming and pre-planning in a different manner. But I would just say, let's delve into things, and then you can see for yourself whether this is actually something that is useful for you or whether it isn't, right? So first and foremost, once again, I said it already in one of the other videos, this spreadsheet you can get access to. This is a spreadsheet that you can find when you are purchasing the presentation, how to build your own spreadsheet. Then you will actually get access to it. And also at the same time, I will run you through how to build a spreadsheet like this so that you are not stealing this one. So without further ado, now let's delve into things. So just to make it a little bit clearer for you, this is week number 4. Let's just say week number 4 is the last week of your mesocycle, where you really leave no stone unturned. You really push it to the limits. You push to 1 and 0 RER. That 1 and 0 RER basically is your baseline foundation and the numbers for then the next mesocycle. Because when you've truly pushed to 1 and 0 RER, and you may have like a little bit of a harder time estimating what 4 RER is, what 3 RER is, sometimes even what 2 RER is, you sometimes have a hard time gauging those. If you once gone through a mesocycle like this, where you're then pushing to 1 and 0 RER, you basically start to know what 4 RER is, and you don't necessarily have to feel it the next time that you're then starting a new mesocycle, because chances are that you are very, very close to your true 4 RER with maybe minor deviations. But if you're truly capable of pushing to 1 and 0 RER and you are in a more advanced stage, it's very unlikely that you are having or experiencing a massive deviation from it. After deload, we're expecting that some of the adaptations have already been taking place. So hopefully you are a little bit stronger. You've been taking care of the fatigue that was building up throughout the mesocycle, and you got rid of that, and you are basically ready then for the next mesocycle. And by that, you should also be able to start at a little bit of a higher ceiling the next time. So somewhere around the 1 rep more or a little bit more load. So let's just take the first example here with the bench press. Let's just assume, for the sake of simplicity, you're able to do like 120 kilograms for 8 repetitions for 1 rep in reserve. This is pretty straightforward. You are basically counting the hit reps together then with the hit RER, and this gives you the total amount of repetitions. So in our example, it's 8 repetitions plus 1 repetitions equals I couldn't hear you. Of course, it's 9 repetitions, right? So you basically did, for the first set of the bench press in the last week of this mesocycle, 120 for 9 total repetitions. So if you then want to pre-plan it for the next mesocycle, and let's just assume that week number 1 here is already the next mesocycle, you go in there and you first do a little bit of reverse engineering. So you plug in the load that you did in the last week. Then you're going ahead and type in the total amount of repetitions that you did. So it's kind of 9 for 0 RER, right? Now, what is it that you're supposed to be doing? It's 5 to 10 repetitions for 4 RER. So let's take the next step and first subtract like 4 reps from the 9 total amount of repetitions. That gives us 5 for basically 4 RER. Now, remember what I said earlier. after a deload, we are expecting that some of the adaptations have taken place. So you should be a little bit stronger and you should be capable of doing a little bit more, at least a little bit more. The least kind of progress that you can aim for is probably one more repetition. So let's just assume that you are at least able to do one more repetition, which brings us to 6 repetitions. So because it's the first week, you're aiming for then a total amount of 5 to 10 repetitions. This could actually be left like this, right? And then instead of progressing via load over the next couple of weeks in the mesocycle, you can try to actually add then one more repetition at least each and every single week, up until the point where you're then hitting the high end of the repetition range for the first set of a given exercise, and then you're making the jump to the next load. Or if you think that it's too low, because fatigue will of course kick in with the consecutive sets if we are keeping load and RER static. So let's just assume that the next sets will be like this: 6, 5, and 4 for 4 and 4 RER. Then that would mean that you're coming outside of the repetition range. If that's something that you want to avoid, or you have the feeling that the reps drop too low, then what it is that you could end up doing is actually subtract a little bit of the starting load, which probably will bring you to somewhere around like, I don't know, 8 repetitions for probably 4 RER or so. And this way, you've already kind of pre-planned the loads for the next mesocycle, not only the loads, but also then the target for the repetition range. Now, let's bring up another example. Let's just say you have pushed to 0 RER in the last week, right? And you did it on lat pull downs, for example. 80 kilograms, 15 total repetitions already. So let's reverse engineer. So let's say, once again, 80 kilograms, in the total amount of repetitions. Now subtract the RER that you're supposed to be doing, right? Then you're ending up with 3 here and 12 here. We are supposedly aiming for doing a little bit more because we are coming out of the deload, so we are then able to do probably somewhere around 13 repetitions. And then you can go into the session, aim for 13 repetitions, and then 3 and 4 RER may be harder for you to gauge, but you can be quite certain that this is probably in the very, very near ballpark of where it actually is. Because once again, how likely is it that all of a sudden in the last week of a mesocycle you've been able to do like 80 for 15 for 0 RER, and all of a sudden in the first week after just one deload you're able to do something like 80 for 15 repetitions for 3 RER? Very unlikely, right? Probably chances are that you got a little bit stronger also because the fatigue was actually then coming down throughout the deload, and by that you're then coming in and you can actually be very close to the given RER of like 3 and 4 RER, and by that you're also then able to practice and learn what then 3 and 4 RER may feel like as well. And this is a way of how to then pre-plan the next mesocycle, and it allows you to keep the progression going, to keep yourself also accountable, because at some point loads and weights, they will always feel heavy. And this way you can then just like ensure that you're staying on point, staying on track, you're always adding something. And then once you go through an entire mesocycle like this, again, next time you will probably end somewhere around, let's just bring up the bench press example, maybe the next time you end up at around 125 for 8 for 6 for 5 for 1, 1 and 0 RER, maybe something like this. This is just like, of course, a general example. That doesn't mean that it will turn out that way, but this way you can at least always kind of challenge yourself, always pre-plan things so that you're also simplifying things. You actually can ensure that you are making progress, and once again you are also able to then learn how to gauge things such as 3 and 4 RER a little bit better, and by that over time you're also then getting stronger. So whenever people are saying like, oh RER, why are you going to make it complicated? Hey, it couldn't be any easier than this, to be honest. This way you're ticking off so many boxes at the same time, and once you have gone once through the reverse engineering method or any kind of other way of how to pre-plan the next mesocycle, it's quite intuitive, it's quite easy to do. One more example I wanted to just bring up, just in case you want to automate things a little bit more. So what it is that you could always be doing if you're kind of like an Excel crack, and this is nothing special, this is not crazy in any or by any means or so, but if you want to do it and automate the process a little bit more, so you could actually use something like this. So equal sum Then we take like from the first set of the last Mesocycle, and then we do like plus the total amount of ARIA that you had, and you can see it already in the number. It's total amount of 9 minus the 4 ARIA, so basically the ARIA of the first week, and then closing it, and by that you already have it. And if you want to be very fancy, you can then also plug in a +1, which then should be the least minimal increase of like repetitions after something like a deload. This way you can actually create things for yourself. This way you can once again ensure that you are constantly making progress by the least amount. Doesn't mean that it's only always just like 1 repetition. Sometimes it's also an increase in load, or maybe sometimes even 2 repetitions or so, but it's very unlikely that it's more than this most of the time. And yeah, as always guys, I really do hope that this was helpful. Go and check out the how to pre-plan the next Mesocycle presentation, where I'm then also talking about 2 other methods, which are also very simplistic. I myself prefer the reverse engineering method the most, because it may seem complex at first, but it's actually quite simple and intuitive. Once you did it, it's actually then pretty straightforward. It ensures once again that you are constantly making progress, but also at the same time teaches you what 3 and 4 ARIA feels like, etc., etc. So this is my most preferred method because it just ticks off so many of those boxes. If you like stuff like this, let me know in the comment section below. Leave a thumbs up. Also share it around over on social media. It's very much appreciated, something like this. Share it with your friends, share it with your clients, maybe even share it with your parents if they are into lifting as well. And also hit the subscribe button as well. That is always appreciated. And I guess I'll speak to you next time. Cheers guys.